Okay, this is the video lesson for Algebra 1D, lesson 12.3, measures of central tendency. So the objective here is to find mean, median, mode, and range. Actually, I don't think we actually get to range. So to start off, mean, median, and mode are just all measures of central tendency. So that's what measures of central tendency is, just kind of the umbrella for a mean, median, and mode. And it's just a way of, just different ways of summarizing a set of data. And so the measure of central tendency that makes the most sense for a data set depends on whether or not it has an outlier. And an outlier is a data value. Here, I can point where I'm talking about this here. An outlier is a data value that is much greater or less than other values in the set. So here's the key concepts here. A mean, this is going to be another word for average. So you sum up all the data values and then divide by the total number of data values. That's the average. We use the mean to describe the middle of a set of data that does not have an outlier. So if it doesn't have an outlier, the mean is a really good way to summarize a data set. The median is going to be the middle value of a data set if you arrange the values in order. So if you have a set, if there's even numbers, and you just take the average of the two middle values. And so you use the median if you do have an outlier, because that's going to probably make a little bit more sense, because the outlier in this case would move the mean around too much and maybe not describe really what's happening, where the median would show exactly what's in the middle if there is an outlier. And then the mode is a data item that occurs the most times. So data set can have no mode, one mode, or more than one mode. And you use mode when the data are non-numeric or when you're choosing the most popular item. So it depends on the context of what you're doing. So let's look at a problem here with some data. These are bowlers, some bowling scores. We had 8 bowlers, and here are the scores. Which measure of central tendency best describes the scores? Well, let's look at our different measures of central tendency. So let's start with the mean. We're going to add up all these scores, and I'll press pause while I do that to save you guys some time. Okay, so I've added these up. So I took each score, added it up, and we got 976. And then since there's 8 of them, we divide it by 8. So the mean here is 122. And if you do, well, let's look at next the median. And that's going to be the middle value here. So if we put them in order, 109, 113, 117, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We can tell a couple of things here. We just put them in order. Let's look. There's 8, so we're going to be looking at the 2 middle ones right here, and we're going to take the average of those. So 109 plus 113 divided by 2 is going to be 111. So that's our median. And then if we do the mode, since we put them in order, we can see here that this number happened 3 times. So the mode is 104 and nothing else repeated. So that's the mode. And so if we looked also putting them in order, you can see that these are all kind of close together. This is an outlier here. This 189 is way bigger than the rest. So that's why this is called an outlier. And since it's averaged in here, this probably doesn't make the most sense as the mean, it is the mean, but it probably doesn't measure the data best or describe the data best. So when it asks here, which measure of central tendency best describes the score, remember up here it said the mean is used to describe the middle of the set of data if it does not have an outlier. So since this does have an outlier, we're going to use the median. So the measure of central tendency that best describes the score is the median. And you can see that with that data, 111 seems a little bit more in the middle than 122. Middle, or just kind of gives you a better idea of what happened with the data. Right? If I told you it was 120, the average was 122, you might think people scored a little higher than they did. But because that outlier is really throwing it off. Okay. There's one for you to try on your own on this page. And this is the same data as the problem before, but we've taken out the outlier. So there's now 7 bowlers. So see if you can figure out what the mean, the median, and the mode are of these scores. And then which measure of central tendency best describes the data now that the outlier is gone. So press pause and check back for the solutions. Okay, so the mean here was 112.4, right? Without that 189, it definitely came down to make a little more sense on the data. The median is now 109. So since this data doesn't have an outlier, we're going to use the mean as the measure of central tendency that best describes the data. So our answer here is mean. I didn't write that. Okay, so we're moving on to problem 2. So problem 2 says your grades on 3 exams are an 80, 93, and 91. What grade do you need on the next exam to have an average of 90 on the total of 4 exams? So this is a question I get a lot, so pay attention. You all know that this is a time where you actually will use this math in real life when you're trying to figure out what grade you need. So let's call this grade X that we don't know, right? We have 4 tests. One's an 80, one's a 93, one's 91, and the other one's an X. And then this is average, so we're going to do the mean. There are 4 tests, so we're going to divide the sum of these 4 tests, and we want the average to be 80. And a lot of times too, I won't write this here, but you just want to make sure you have at least a 90, right? So you would put, right, you want your score to be greater than or equal to 90, but it doesn't really matter because what you're really looking for is the lowest score that you need in order to get that, in this case, the A, right, to get a 90. So what you're going to do is add up you're just going to solve for X, right? This is just an algebra problem. So you're going to do 80 plus 93 plus 91, combining like terms, you get 2, 6, yeah, that's a calculator. My daughter is here watching me make this video. 264 plus X divided by 4 equals 90. And then to get rid of that divide by 4, we're going to multiply by 4 on both sides. So these 4's cancel. So this is going to be, let's move this up here, 264 plus X equals 360, and then we just subtract 264 from both sides. So you need 264 and 96, right? So X has to be greater than or equal to 96, but in this case we just did 96. Okay, so in order to get an average of a 90 or an average of A on these 4 exams, you need to have a 96 on your next exam. So we have one for you to try on your own. Ooh, that is weird. Never seen it do that. Oh, cool. Okay. Well, you just need the problem. Let's see if I can move them both at the same time. There we go. Okay. So it says for this one for you to try on your own. So this is going to be the same problem. You have the same 3 exams. But what score do you need to have an average of 88? So do this one on your own, press pause, and check back for the solution. Okay, so when you do this again all you had to do was change this 90 to an 88 and solve for X, you do it the same exact way. You get that you need an 88 on the test to get an 88 average. So hopefully you got that, and then try your practice here. Enjoy.